Looks great, Bonnie. I see I see the Slack on the slides.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
We'll probably get started in a minute or so. I hope more people are getting let in.
To ground us into this time and space here, I'm putting in a land acknowledgement link so that for folks here, they can find what indigenous land that they are currently on. I am on the indigenous land of the Cachiquel people in Guatemala.
All right, shall we get started, Bonnie?
Yes, McCall, are you ready?
All right. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Mabel Aoyang. I am with Zero Waste Youth. I'm actually an alumni, or that's how I would consider myself. So this is our 10th annual conference. It's been a great ride, and we're just really happy to have all of you here joining us virtually this year. Let's see. We are very appreciative that you came to spend your Saturday with us. And even though we would like to see you in person, virtual conference actually allow more people to be able to join us, and also speakers from all over the world. So there's also added benefits of reducing carbon emissions from not traveling. But we do have a Day of Action in-person event next weekend in San Francisco. If you guys are local, we'll share more information about that event later on during the event. We have a great day planned out for you, but we want to talk a little bit about ourselves and introduce ourselves. We are Zero Waste Youth USA. We are the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of the International Organization of Zero Waste Youth. Our mission is to empower the youth to build a zero waste future. We are a group of students and young professionals serving high school youth, college students, and young professionals, or new to the profession. We aim to develop and promote concepts for a zero waste future that emphasize actionable upstream and downstream solutions to conserve our natural resources. As I mentioned, this is our 10th Convergence. Our organization was formed back in 2013 during the Northern California Recycling Association annual recycling update. It was initiated for the very first Zero Waste Youth Convergence with the help of NICRA, as well as all of our partners all over the world. Throughout the years, we also planned many activities for the youth for the youth that we serve. If we can go to the next slide. We want to build a strong community for the next generation of zero waster, and we are glad that you are now part of us. These are some of the activities we have planned throughout the years, and we hope to plan more of these events if it's something that you are interested in being part of the group. We also like to thank our fiscal sponsor, again, Northern California Recycling Association, and the rest of the sponsors that make this event happen. A big shout out to all of our speakers in various time zones and who donated their time to be part of our event. We also want to thank all of speakers again, and all the volunteers who helped plan this event as well. So before we get started, I'd like to first acknowledge the land that we are standing on. Although this is a virtual event and with no specific location, Zero Waste Youth USA is mainly based in the Bay Area, San Francisco. So we want to take this opportunity to honor and acknowledge that we are located on Native Ohlone land. And here's the website that you can explore and research the Native communities local to your area that you're currently in or places that you frequent. This year's program, our theme is Individual Act, Community Impact. We see this year's theme as an opportunity to showcase the great work of youth involvement in different capacities, whether it is at school, at home, in the Bay Area, or all over the world. Because of our individual action, we are acknowledging knowledge that we share and leaning onto each other with a common goal. We're able to make impacts within all of our communities and the community as a global citizens. To build a zero waste future and to tackle the challenges that lay ahead, we depend on each other and we depend on our individual acts to make community impacts. So this is the program that we have. You'll see that we will have a morning keynote speaker, and then we'll split into 2 tracks with concurrent sessions. And we'll share more logistic with you and to make sure that you're in the right Zoom link to enjoy all the program that we have planned for you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mikal to introduce our keynote speaker, Sage. Mikal, let's check your mic so then we can hear you properly.
Okay, thanks, Mabel. So I'm really excited to welcome Sage. I'm really appreciate all the work that you've done for environment and sustainable and just future is the name of the organization. And its mission is to not only provide environmental education, but also to provide a focus on actions and solutions that we can take. So take it away, Sage.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my slides with you all. Okay. I just want to share this. So let's see. Okay, and then what do? Is it presenter view? Yes. Can you see my full screen now or just the slides?
We see your browser tab actually.
Interesting. You think I would be good at this by now? I think that's all right. I think that's totally fine. Oh, wait, how do I restart though? Okay.
Just stop sharing, unshare and share again.
Oh, you can't. Oh, I don't know why it's paused. Can you see it? Can you see my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay, weird. Sorry. Just a moment, everyone. Oh, now I'm viewing Bonnie's screen.
Yeah, I started sharing so that you could unshare and unpause your.
Okay,
So.
I see what you mean. I totally see what you mean. Okay. Slides. Okay, we're just gonna go like this. I don't really need my notes, so we'll just have to do that. Okay, and now it's full screen, yeah?
Perfect.
Correct.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so honored to be opening this conference, and I'm really excited to be chatting with you all today. Bonnie and I kind of brainstormed what the themes of the conferences were, and then what she felt like really needed to be said. And we realized there was this kind of conversation around zero waste as a movement, zero waste as, how can you be a zero waste activist, and really taking zero waste from an individual action, or maybe something that's implemented by small businesses and pushing towards a system change. So today I have just a little presentation around zero waste system thinking. So I'll give a little bit of background about myself and my work first. Interestingly enough, I think I, like many people, have my roots in zero waste. That's why I started out as an environmentalist, and it's really shifted and changed and grown. But as I'm realizing more and more, and I'll get into it, like obviously all of these things are so intertwined, and zero waste has become one of my frameworks that I use to develop all of my work, whether that's climate activism or anything else. So my name is Sage Lenier. I'm the founder of Sustainable and Just Future. This is a youth-led nonprofit. We are newly a nonprofit. The organization has existed for 5 years already, and we just became a nonprofit about 6 weeks ago. So that's really exciting. So we are pushing for solutions-oriented environmental education with the goal of, creating a well-educated next generation of people on the things that are, extremely relevant to us as we move into a climate changed world, and obviously building a larger environmental movement. I think what education is one of the hugest barriers to movement, because environmental education either is not there or is so doomsday oriented that people are just like, I can't handle that. Ignorance is bliss, not gonna get engaged. So I think this is one of those tools for building a bigger movement where everyone feels like this is something that they can be a part of. So this program started out at Berkeley. I was teaching a student-led class with 25 people, and over 2.5 years, it grew and just blew up. And this was the largest the class has ever been. We've scaled back after this just because it was a lot, but this is a lecture of 300 people in this photo. So we broke the record for the largest student-led course twice. The first time was with 160 and the second time was with 300. So far, we've had over 300 people, or over 1,800 people go through the program. And I can give you like a little overview of what's in the program really quickly. So you'll see that one of our solutions is zero waste, and zero waste is really a framework through which I developed this program. So the first 4 lectures, I call them the circular economy lecture, but the circular economy is really zero waste applied as a framework. So, or the circular economy module is what I mean. So consumerism is capitalism is climate change, waste streams. So we talk about where things go when you throw them away, landfill, recycling, compost. We talk about toxicity, or more like materiality. What is the materials that our built environment is now made of? Talk about cradle to cradle design as a design framework, and then we scale it up for what a zero waste economy, system, society would look like. And so that's a portion of what we do in this program. We've had amazing results with this. We have people self-reporting their environmental awareness before and after taking the class, and people have experienced a really big shift. 2/3 of our participants are non-environmental majors, which is awesome, etc. So, I'm asking the question, I've been thinking about this a lot, what does it mean to be a zero waste activist? And how does that relate to the more dominant narrative of climate activists or climate activism? I think a lot of people are kind of not seeing the connection and kind of feeling like they have to go one way or another. I think there's also a little bit of beef between those two groups. So, how can we come together and build up? Oh, I should open. Okay, I'll check the chat periodically. How do we, convene and converge those two seemingly different social groups in the environmental movement? Well, if we're looking at it, 4% of greenhouse gas emissions are associated with plastic. Sorry, I don't have my sources on here. I do know that these are solid numbers, and I can send you the sources later. I just didn't have the time to add them. About half of the world's plastic is single use. So 4% is not obviously the whole puzzle, but that's a really significant portion of things when we're looking at just trying to stay under, trying to get every lower degree of warming that we possibly can. But also, I think the basic tenet of zero waste that is so radical that I think a lot of people are losing as it becomes more and more commodified by, this like middle class, white, aesthetic sort of thing, is that the basic tenet of zero waste is to lower your consumption in the first place. It's not about dodging plastic. It's not about, trying to like get grapes without having them individually wrapped. It's the most basic tenet is we are consuming too much, and the most basic tenet is minimalism. So 45 to 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions are associated with consumerism, the production and consumption of household goods. And that's really the place that I want people to be talking about, that little sweet spot right there, because I think people are having such a hard time balancing individual action, system change, how they interconnect, and really, it cannot be one or the other. It has to be both in so many ways. And, when you're looking at that, obviously that, consumption of household goods, the vast majority of that is in wealthier communities all around the world. So there is a call to action, and it is radical. So looking at how, climate activism and zero waste are so intimately intertwined, 45 to 60% of those greenhouse gas emissions are at the nexus of both climate and zero waste. So we cannot just be climate activists pushing for renewable energy because we are still extracting too many resources. So if all we do is transition our energy system over to renewable energy, we would still have all of these other environmental problems: deforestation, overfishing, air pollution, water pollution. We would just have renewable energy, and also still a system that's based on exploitation. So climate activism, climate action can't be pushed without a zero waste framework. And I was going to go on the other side of that. What was I going to do on the other side of that? I can't remember the point I was about to make. I was going to be like, and on the other hand, anyways, we move on. So, this was supposed to be a slide above, but this is just some student testimonials from my course, not that super relevant. So I'm always really struck by this quote from Naomi Klein, if opposition movements are to do more than burn bright and then burn out, they will need a comprehensive vision for what should emerge in the place of our failing system. So we have to be visionaries here. We have to be thinking so big picture and trying to design and enact and implement zero waste systems on a community level, on a county, state, neighborhood, municipal, whatever it is kind of level, in the interim while we work on the broad spectrum of things. Because when we talk about things like climate resilience, I'm always trying to talk with people and say, oh, that was a portion of what maybe I should have lectured on, who knows? We're just having a good time. We're all just chatting, right? So gosh, okay. I was just talking about zero waste system design, and then I had meant to say that the purpose of one of the purposes of the educational program at Berkeley and the new nonprofit is to really push people towards action. I think a lot of what we're doing in the environmental space is still awareness raising. I think we're beyond the need for pure awareness raising. And I think what people would need to see, and the tool we need for building a bigger movement where people are like, yeah, that's something I want to get involved with, is to see more of a push towards, okay, here's my group of young people who are passionate about the planet at my student club at school, whatever. We do action. We're not just all talk. And so connecting people with organizations, resources, initiatives, whatever it is in our community is a huge tenet of what we do at the educational programs. And I don't think I put the number, oh, here we go. 71% of our students are reporting that they are planning on getting involved with an environmental organization or initiative as a result of this solutions-oriented, action-focused framework. So that's really, really, really beautiful to see. So then I was talking about zero waste systems thinking. I think that point's probably done. We can move on. So maybe I'm boring the hell out of you with this framework here. You're like, yeah, we know what a circular economy is. Maybe you've never really delved into the concept. So let's talk about it. So circular economy, I've been making, if you're on social media with me, I've been making some TikToks about circular economy and economic degrowth as of late, and they've been really well received, and people are really excited about the idea. So basically, as I was saying a moment ago, if the only thing we change about our society is our energy source, we would still have a myriad of environmental problems, as well as a system based on exploitation. So we also are seeing that any major transition in history in our energy system takes about 50 years. You're looking at IPCC reports, we don't have 50 years. So in my personal opinion and from my personal perspective, I'm sure so many people would disagree with me on this, but I would say that it's more important to be focusing on, not saying that renewables are not important, but I would say it's more important to be focusing on transitioning to a low energy society rather than trying to transition to renewables. I'm not saying that's not a really important piece of the puzzle, but I do think that we need to get to the root of the problem, solve all of these environmental problems by degrowing our consumerist system, the basic tenet of zero waste being minimalism. And from there, just living in a society that needs to extract less from nature and needs less energy would be better than trying to, like, as fast as possible, transition this massive demand of energy over to renewables, because scientists are telling us we cannot make that happen fast enough. And staying under 1.5 Celsius, we would only be able to meet, either 40. Was that someone talking? Or was that feedback on my side? Okay. It's either 45 or 55, and I can't remember which one it is, but that's add up to 100. Percent. So roughly, we could only meet roughly half of our demand for renewables, or for energy with renewables, while staying under 1.5 Celsius. So that is what climate scientists are telling us. They're telling us we need to use less energy overall. So what does a lower carbon system look like? A circular economy. So circular economy is one in which we're emphasizing experiences and services over goods. So rather than having a consumerist economy that is based on the ever-increasing process of extracting resources from nature, turning them into goods, selling them, consuming them, whatever, throwing them away, and then starting that system all over again, we revisit the concept of the way that our society is shaped, whether that's having suburbs with big box stores like TJ Maxx, and that's the only thing to do in the town, or it's having more reuse systems, or it's having, it's so interesting how all this fits together, because if you really want to be zero waste, you got to get into city planning. I'm about to say, because you need to be able to have a society where people are able to invest in hobbies, dance, music, theater, non-tangible things, rather than having an economy and society where our hobby is to buy things. That is kind of, from the social side, the root side of all of these environmental crises, is having a society that's built on buying things, insofar as that 45 to 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions is concerned. So I've spent a lot of time talking about this slide without looking at it, so I'm sure you've probably already read it by now. But basically, services over goods, emphasizing repair rather than buying brand new things. You're looking at design from a design standpoint. There's so many ways that all these things are intertwined, and I think as a movement, there's so much beautiful opportunity to start melding them, whether it's city planning or zero waste or climate action, or being a designer. There's so many places where, like, you know, you can plug in. You don't have to be like waving signs in front of the White House to be like really an integral part of this. So we're looking at long-lasting design from a cradle-to-cradle standpoint. Hopefully we're either using natural materials that can be returned to Earth at the end of their lifetime, or we're using, you know, high-quality plastics, metals, things like that, and designing the goods so that they can be repaired indefinitely, and at their end of life, taken apart and used as raw materials for new things. So you're looking at slowing down the production system so that everything is long lasting. We're not producing so much stuff anymore, and you're drastically cutting emissions in the process. And then you're looking at going from the design standpoint, okay, long lasting, one, but also what are they made of, and how do we make sure that material is closed loop? Services over goods is also rental models, and also just kind of more of an experience-based thing. So, you know, rather than gifts being a tangible thing, it's like, hey, your birthday's coming up. Like, I know you've been wanting to try pottery making, so we're gonna take a class together. I bought us this, you know, what are they called? What's that website? I can't think of the website. But I bought us each a pottery class. We're going to go do that together. That sort of thing. So it's beautiful because in this, each of us can participate in what a circular economy is, and in building a circular economy in our daily lives. We can choose to do this right now. I'm just taking a look at the chat. Thank you guys. You're being so nice. But yeah, experiences over goods, more focused on enjoying life than owning things. Gorgeous. Better for us, better for the planet. So, you know, creating circular economies and closed loop systems. So one thing I wanted to speak to here, I'm doing a little time check. Oh, we're only the half-hour mark. Wow. I feel like I've been talking forever. I love to do these talks as casually as possible. I see no point in being all like, it's just, you know, you and I, we're best friends, having a chat. You can email me later, you know, let's stay in touch, that kind of thing. I am a busy woman though, so I might take a while to respond to your emails. I have so many emails. So one thing that Bonnie and I, when we were brainstorming what should go into this conversation we're talking about, is corporate responsibility, not in like the way that they all have. I mean, CSR on a corporate level is so much like just a PR thing right now, where they're like Walmart is saying that like they're so proud of their vests that they have their employees wearing are recycled water bottles. So they're like, yeah, we're making huge strides, and it's like, no, they're not. But corporate responsibility, not in like CSR, corporate social responsibility, but corporate responsibility is in we are holding them accountable. That's like a little different. So as we're advocating for zero waste systems, it's how can our corporations, the corporations and governments who do already have a huge hold on our society, make changes that enable us to make sustainable and ethical decisions. Those should be default, easy, accessible, affordable. So whether it's government subsidies or it's, you know, different business models, you know, from Walmart is, as I mentioned, Walmart is the largest seller of groceries in the United States. Some might not know that. So how can we start advocating to Walmart so that they are kind of forced to implement more zero waste infrastructure in their grocery stores so that it's more accessible to the everyday person, whether it's Walmart or Whole Foods, kind of everywhere the line. Still, honestly, like, I mean, my local Whole Foods doesn't have a bulk section. The only bulk section where I live is a small independently owned grocery store. So stuff like that. So pushing the onus on the system to enable zero waste rather than me as an individual trying to like dodge plastic or whatever it is, dodge freebies at conferences. Oh my gosh. can we talk about the environmental impact of free basic conferences? So this is a sample from a business called Plant Chicago. So now Plant Chicago, I think, has shifted from this model. I can't quite remember the details. I don't think it was because this model wasn't working out. I think it was either they suffered a fire or there was like beef between like the owners or something like that. But they still are a real thing and they still have a different business model. But I think this was the coolest one that they ever had. So they took over an old, what was it, a firehouse or like a meat packing building in Chicago. And they tried to build their best to build this circular system. So it had all of these different outputs: beer, kombucha, food. They had restaurants operating. There's a pizza, like a, what are they called? Stone-fired oven sort of thing. Jobs, soil as a product of their composter. Startup businesses, so like, good for the economy, whatever. Mushrooms. There's these different outputs in the community, and then also a huge portion was education. They would host and invite schools from the area to come. Where's my mouse at? Especially low income and at-risk youth. They would host educational programs to like learn about what the system looks like, and they still do that. That's really cool. They generated a portion of their own electricity with a turbine generator that was partially powered from biogas, from the compost, anaerobic digestion's compost. They were growing plants in a hydroponics setup, and the plants in it's aquaponics when you do fish and plants together. Aquaculture is just fish, hydroponics and it's
Yeah, aquaponics.
Aquaponics, there we go. Aquaponics, so they were doing the fish and plants together, which is a really cool symbiotic situation. You don't need much input or output because the plants eat the fish's poop and the fish eat the plants, and it's great. So they were producing food. So they, a really fascinating way of, kind of redesigning our urban spaces, from a city planning standpoint or an architectural standpoint. This is fascinating, housing all of these different businesses in one place with their varying inputs and outputs that can interact together and provide either waste or food for the other systems. So, whether you're a designer or whatever, there's so many ways that like this is an example of enabling our community to live in a more sustainable and ethical way. So this, I think maybe my slides are a little out of order. So this was supposed to be behind the circular economy slide, but basically, yeah, ecovative, we've got returning to the earth as an output, or a different framework through which we understand zero waste. So just, mycelium packaging and stuff like that, composting, rental ownership, repair models. Patagonia is the example given here. I'm going to be frank, I don't really mess with Patagonia. It's just the reluctant billionaire. Come on. You just didn't have to build to grow your business that large. You just didn't. Aside from that, I don't think that the worst business, and I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, come on, it's not really possible to become a reluctant billionaire or a billionaire in an accident. You could have just not done that. You could have just sold less. Whatever. Anyways, so I was talking about, like, how can we advocate to Walmart, Whole Foods, Target? What are the other major grocery? I can't, like, for some reason can't think of a Safeway or Vons, wherever you call it, advocating to them to take some responsibility for their role in, and also the companies that are selling food in there, whether it's, okay, I wouldn't say Hot Pockets, because like ideally in a great, wonderful regenerative agriculture system, we're not going to have Hot Pockets, or maybe we can have like a really organic version of Hot Pockets because they're kind of good. But advocating to these companies and these grocery stores, these institutions around us, restaurants, to enable us to create, to have sustainable and ethical options is very accessible and affordable. Oh, and I think I forgot to put an example of this, but I'm I'm sure you're all familiar with like cup reusable circular cup models or foodware models where communities are working together to different restaurants are basically licensing out a reusable Tupperware or reusable coffee cup or whatever it is, and then you can return it at different locations and stuff, things like that. That's another example of like the, but I'm sure you're all familiar with those kinds of things. They're popping up left and right. So another example of kind of forcing the change onto the corporation is, Levi's and Madewell and Nordstrom are offering repair services or not repair services, alterations, and that's adorable. They're whether you're doing a custom thing or getting your brand new pants shortened, but a real example of, system change. Both Patagonia and Levi's have this now, and there's small collections, but it's a great step in the right direction, is one, a buyback program, where they're buying back their own gently used or vintage clothes and reselling them. So it's a great way for a company to continue to generate revenue while not producing more things, making money off of their old stuff. And companies who have been manufacturing high quality goods are going to win out in that circumstance because they have to be, they have to last long enough to be worth buying back. Princess Polly couldn't say the same. So buyback models are a system intervention that we can ask for them more for, but also to push towards repair. Levi's, could give themselves another way of generating revenue without selling more stuff. If they were to expand maybe they do, maybe I can walk in and say, I have a hole in my jeans and I want it repaired, but I know you can't do that at Nordstrom or Madewell or those other examples. So pushing for repair. And that's one of the tenets of the circular economy and just zero waste applied. Sharing economy, talked about that a little bit. Oh my gosh, gig car share. So if you're in the Bay Area, you've probably seen gig car, and they're also in Seattle. And then there's different places that offer these kinds of things, or different businesses that are offering a similar model. The reason I'm obsessed with it, and the reason I say it's a great example of the circular economy in action, is because you turn the concept of a car from a good to a service. They are, as a company, you're going to be really looking for long-lasting and easily repairable cars, because that's going to lower your profit if the cars are breaking in 7 years and like have really expensive repairs and stuff. So it incentivizes the manufacturer to create long-lasting cars. It turns the concept of a car from a service to a good, because rather than owning it, I license it. I rent it out for 10 minutes at a time. Literally, like I took a trip the other day. I was in Berkeley this past week, and let's see how many minutes was I in the car for. Gig car, short trip. Oh, it's not going to show me my minutes. Looks like it was about 20 minutes for $10. Incredible. Actually, that might be longer. That's 40 minutes. Wow. I had the car for 40 minutes. It only cost me $10. That's crazy. But I called them up, and this was a couple years ago. But so the numbers are definitely different. But I called them up a couple years ago, and I said, "Hey, gig, I want to talk about you in a lecture. How many cars do you have in the Bay Area?" And they're like 500. And I was like, "And how many users do you have signed up?" And I think the number they gave me at the time was 20,000. So obviously that's not 20,000 active users, but I was like, dang, 20,000 of us who don't own cars are sharing a fleet of 500 cars. They get used all the time. And it just prevents me from wanting to own a car because they fill the gap, whether it's like me driving home in the rain or late at night or groceries or moving or whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh, just really like, sometimes I just want a car, it's a really walkable community, but sometimes I just wish I had a car. And this fills the gap. So you turn the concept of a car into a service, and then you reduce car ownership. And that's zero waste in action, baby, if we're looking at it from a framework of like applied, right? Oh, I did include the cup problem in here. Awesome. So basically, yeah, so there's a problem of disposability. You as zero wasters are so familiar with this. I know you all bring your own cup everywhere you go. So people are like, we could figure out how to recycle them, or compostable cups, or let's just have everyone bring their own. Obviously, those are not working for different reasons. You forget your cup. Recycling is not really real. It's not recycled, it's downcycled. Compostable cups, still single use, still, a pull on the earth's resources, whatever. So we see systems like this. So Vessel didn't survive the pandemic, unfortunately, in its current form, but they just got bought, and I think they're going to come back. So Vessel's still going to happen. So that's like good news. If you're in the Berkeley area, I'm sure you've seen them. They also are in Boulder, Colorado. It's funny because like I think in like the nonprofit space, you'll hear people say Berkeley, Boulder, Brooklyn, like the green places, like, and so they're trying to find examples of green things happening outside of Berkeley, Boulder, and Brooklyn. Funny. So yeah, a reusable cup system that all of these different cafes are working with together. It's really convenient because I can pick it up, drop it off at any location, don't need to remember my own, don't need to lug it around all day. Zero waste in action. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with this kind of thing. I talked about this, returning to human-centered design, and it's 7:43. So that's a bit of a lackadaisical thing. Let me pause for a moment and just think. Yeah, I want you all to feel empowered and essential to the movement. I think zero waste is, especially through the pandemic, is struggling as a concept, and with the amount of people who participate in it, and maybe you're feeling a little discouraged from engaging with it now, especially through the pandemic. I would like to see the movement, all of our different, that we've got our architects who are wearing all black, and we've got our climate activists, and we've got our zero wasters, and we've got our ag people and the forestry guys, and we're not really communicating much as a movement, but we really need to start talking about what our intersections are and where we can start to work together. I want you to feel empowered as someone who's passionate about zero waste, to know that your framework is a really essential part of this movement. I think you have something to, you and your advocacy work have something to offer the environmental movement that is so, so, so essential. And so it's a matter of getting these conversations started and really bringing us all in together to understand that, zero waste activism, basically being, anti-consumerism movement, is just as important as, but also just as high visibility, or it should be just as high visibility as all of these other components of the environmental space. So I'm open to questions. And yeah, Bonnie, let me know if there's anything I missed.
You did great, Sage. Thank you. And I realize, trying to fit up your course worth of information into this tiny, short, limited, could be very challenging, especially with these big picture topics, but you did great. And thank you so much. And I'll pass it over to Mikal for Q&A.
Yeah, it was a really great presentation that you led. It just makes me feel not alone. So just like hearing about the grapes, and that was like my concern, and it's like other people think like I do. Just amazing. I definitely want to connect with you after this chat, but right now we're going to open it up for questions. So what you can do is just leave it in the chat, and if you feel comfortable, then you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. So that is the dealio. So we only have around 10 minutes. So you could just add your questions right now. Let me think if I had a question while we're waiting for questions. I'm just wondering like how you're able to, I guess, advocate for certain things. Like, for example, the local Safeway doesn't have recycling, and I'm just like baffled by it. I'm wondering like, how would you advocate for that?
Oh yeah, do you mean like the plastic bag recycling that they're supposed to have, or like bottles and cans collection?
They don't have like paper bags. They only have plastic bags in their store. Yeah, I'm just like, why? Like, we're in 2023. But yeah.
Oh, lots. I didn't realize that like any grocery stores were still doing plastic. I think maybe I've seen it. Actually, I think Walmart still has them.
But also they don't have like a recycling bin for their receipts. There's only trash bag, like trash
Oh.
cans.
Yeah, well, receipts are not recyclable because they're
Oh.
coated with BPA. Yeah.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's like one of those things, like, I think we need to move towards either like digital receipts or just like, I don't know, paper. Like they need to be like only printed on demand. Ugh, what a huge source of waste. But yeah, the reason like there's no ink in the printer machine. Sorry, that's an aside. You can talk about it later. So yeah, I think that's a great question. You know, whether I don't know what level of community you feel like you have in the area you live in, but that's an amazing campaign to try and start, whether it's literally just you all writing emails to corporate and asking, you know, I know that Safeways and other places have this, this, and this.
Mhm.
Why not in mine? And also maybe talking with like finding out if that Safeway is independently owned. I'm not sure if Safeway does that. But talking with the management or whatever about being like, hey, like, how can we as a group or whatever help you set up some stuff? You know, maybe there is a cheap contract with a recycler that we can help you find, you know, basically being like a little consultant almost. I think there's like, I think just leaning into the community aspect of it, whether you have like I know there's like What's Up Berkeley, like What's Up Corona kind of like Facebook groups.
Mhm.
And just being like, hey, I was like thinking about this, or wait, there's also that app that people use, and it's usually like there's tea on it because people will like use it to complain about their neighbors, but it's also supposed to be like a community connecting thing. Just, you know, find some people in your community who would be interested in talking about the same thing, and yeah, just try the corporate level, try the regional level. I'm happy to keep to help you keep brainstorming about it. But that's a great place to start, definitely.
Thanks for your insight. So we can move on to other questions. I know there's a bunch that popped up. Devin asks, what would you say to your 6th, 7th, and 8th grade self to encourage zero waste principles on a school campus? Yeah, we can go through that question and then we can just go in that order. Hopefully we have enough time for the other questions as well.
Okay, I'll try to be succinct. That's something that I think about all the time. Like, what would I tell my younger self? I think there's so much room, and I was just talking to Elise Joshi, who's an incredible climate and labor organizer, about doing some kind of overlap work with Sunrise, like the 3 of our organizations, I guess. And we were just talking about how like young people have so much power, especially like people under the age of 18. And yeah, anyways, I think if I were to talk to my like middle school age self, I would be like, start a campaign for a compost program and a garden. I would also say it probably won't get done in the time that you're at that school. So plan on that being a long haul fight and get people involved who are going to keep it going after you leave the school. And I would also say find role models that are not going to convince you to like get sucked into the system of consumerism as, you know, a basic tenet of zero waste. Because I think when we're paying attention to like the fast fashion influencers and whatnot, we end up becoming hyper consumerists ourselves. And it's really important to have role models that have bigger values than that.
May I ask a quick follow-up question to that? Was it considered cool to do zero waste in middle school?
Not at at my middle school. I mean, yeah, I just think like that was so long ago. There was not really much environmental consciousness. When was I in middle school? Maybe like 10 years ago. Okay, so that's not like so long ago, but maybe it was longer. I don't even know.
Okay, so I think it's a good time to move on to the next question. Let me take a look. So one of that popped up earlier was from Ruth, and she said, when thinking about zero waste, I think it can sound really intimidating. Where should people start? I'm in the Nebraska campus, and my campus doesn't even have recycling. I feel like it's very difficult to find resources, unfortunately.
Interesting. Okay, I'm looking. Okay. You could send me an email after, Kaylee, and we could talk. I feel like there are a lot of zero waste resources, so like we can point you in the right direction.
Okay, and then another question was from Jency, and she said that you mentioned different groups in the environmental movement aren't talking to one another and collaborating. So how do you recommend resolving this?
That's a really good point. That's a really good question. I think social media could be a huge tool here, and maybe that would also help answer the question from Kaylee about being in Nebraska. I think social media is a great tool for building community and starting to try to make these connections. I know that after giving this presentation, I'm like, wow, I just had like several more ideas for like content, and I'm gonna like go and talk about this and get people hopefully like connected more. But I think it's a little easier when you are in the environmental space, whether that's you're at a university or you're in a club or it could be a community club even, wherever you are. I'm sure there's some amount of community action or in a very, urban area, whatever it is, where you can, convene and talk and collaborate. I think it's hard to say, here's a 1, 2, 3 of how we get everyone to talk a little better, but maybe just calling out those connections as they are and saying, hey, we can't get climate action done if we're not redesigning our cities. But it's not that the only helpful, radical, crazy, empowering thing you can do is like go to Congress. Like there are other tracks for people with different personalities and desires who are also really essential portions of this. And just having that conversation as a movement, I think would help bring more people in as well. Because I think some people get turned off because they're like, yeah, I care about the planet, but I don't have time to lobby.
Good points, Sage. So it's 10:55, so we do have to move forward, but if you have some questions, we can still have them answered during the lunch hour. So feel free to keep adding those questions. Thanks again.
Thank you all so much for your attention and time. I will make one of those slides. I just saw the link up there. I'll make one of them right now. And here is my email in case you have further questions. And you can find me on social media at Sage Lenier.
Great. Thank you so much, Sage.